to the Your Life Unfiltered podcast with your hosts, Kitu Pathari and Deepam Jain. In this podcast, we dig deep into the life experiences of our guests to connect the dots between their early experiences and what they're doing today. Before we get started, if you guys are not already following Your Life Unfiltered on Instagram and on YouTube, please be sure to give us a follow. With that said, today we have a very special guest, Mansi Vira. Mansi, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Keithel and Deepam, for this opportunity. I'm Mansi Vira. I'm from New Jersey. I'm a naturopathic doctor and also passionate about dance, cooking, all things nature.
Mansi, first of all, thanks for joining us. Really excited to have you. Before we talk about what you're doing today, let's go back, to your early childhood, early upbringings. Talk to us a little bit more about your some of the early experiences, any inspirations, motivations, anything that really stuck out to you that basically that you still kind of look back to, and that basically you connect the dots as looking back.
So my childhood, I come from a Jain background, so we had that very much so as part of our daily life. We went to Sunday school called Bacha, but more than that, where I grew up, it's all about culture and preserving the Indian culture, the Edison area, So having been exposed to our culture at the roots since childhood, it's basically shaped who I am, I feel, today, because I started dancing since the age of 5, participated in so many competitions and performances throughout the country and world even. Our dance teacher brought us to India and we performed there. So having that cultural background, I think has also helped me understand why I wanted to pursue naturopathic medicine more than, the conventional, because it really goes back to our roots and nature and using that preventative approach rather than, just treating the symptoms. So I think it's all connected.
Okay, very interesting. I know you said you got involved with dance at a very young age. Could you elaborate on what type of dance? Was there choreographed dance? Was it cultural inspired dance? Anything you want to share from that perspective?
Yeah. So I started learning Bharatanatyam and Odissi at the age of 5 and 6, and then also Bollywood dance. So we would compete mostly for Bollywood, but then also we had local in the New Jersey area. We had something called ICA, Indian Cultural Association. So we did that. Wherever we had the opportunity, we did that, even in school, the talent shows and things like that too. So it was mostly choreographed, but then I also did my own choreography, and then I would perform. I was often asked to perform in weddings and, any special occasions for people. So dance came with me everywhere, and I went with dance everywhere. I also majored in dance in college while doing pre-med. So yeah, dance literally has been a part of my life.
Wow.
That's great.
That's amazing. I do have one question about that, and that is, it seems you got involved with at a very young age, but when you had your first performances, because you were performing in front of people, right? Did you have that sensation of stage fright, or it was just so part of who you were that you kind of didn't even think about the fact that you were performing in front of other people?
I think when I was really young, I didn't. I was just so absorbed into the movements and rhythm and, just all of that. There was a period of time for sure when I was cautious or conscious also about who's watching. Something odd though for me, if there was a filled audience, so a lot of people, it was actually almost better because I couldn't see someone's eyes literally looking at me. So I almost feel like it's weird sometimes, but a larger audience was easier to dance in front of than a smaller one.
Yeah. Actually, on that note, I am just curious to know, do you remember? I know there must have been a lot of memorable performances over the years, but do you remember one or two instances which really stuck out to you as one of the most memorable dance events? ever?
There was this one competition called Nandas, and we did that every single year. I think I did that for 12 or 13 years. And there was one time, it was the song Dharak Dharak from Bunty or Bubbly. And, our teacher often had, like, she is a brilliant choreographer, bringing in so many different dance forms into one performance. So I was Bubbly. I was like the main character for that dance for the girl. And I remember watching Rani Mukherjee's expressions like on repeat because I had to kind of bring that to the stage. And it was challenging. It was definitely challenging. But I remember feeling like, wow, I did it. And, that's not very natural to a classical Indian dancer, right? Because it's very, very high class Bollywood dance style. So just having these opportunities to really explore all sides of, from Bollywood to very serious classical dances to expressing sadness through dance, things like that. And then, of course, the most other memorable performance was my Manch Pravesh. If you've heard of Arangetram in Bharatanatyam, that's like the ODC form of the graduation. I guess it's the recital. So dancing for 3 hours on stage, and one of my dances was almost half an hour. So doing a solo performance for half an hour on stage, that endurance, that year of practice building up to the final performance. I think I look at all of this as just opportunities to see how we can grow and endurance, and how impactful discipline can be to our life, and then that carries over into other areas of our life too.
That is amazing.
I love that you mentioned the movie Bunty or Bubbly, because that's just such a feel-good, funny movie. Yeah. So, for our listeners here that are not familiar with that movie, so the movie is basically a movie about a troublemaking couple. So Bunty is the name of the guy, Bubbly is the name of the girl, and they're basically scam artists. So they go around the world scamming people out of tons of money. I remember one specific scene from that movie was basically Bubbly scamming a really wealthy European person into thinking that the Taj Mahal was for sale.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a funny movie.
So that was a really funny moment there. So.
It really was.
But no, thanks for sharing that. It makes a lot of sense, especially the hard work that you've done over the years. I think it's just gonna really come to see that fruit to fruition. I think that makes that is a feeling of accomplishment that is unparalleled to anything else. So yeah, totally understand that. Actually, I want to switch gears a little bit, talk about naturopathy, which is what you do as full time today. So for the uninitiated, what is naturopathy in the first place? Can you talk us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, naturopathic medicine is essentially a form of primary care, but focused on the preventative and holistic aspects of medicine. So really looking at root cause medicine, treating the root cause instead of looking at symptoms. That's what I would say in a nutshell.
Got it. Okay, so can you give us an example of what it means in practice? Just maybe pick one and then maybe kind of walk us through that, if you don't mind.
Like, I mean, one example could be, think of like a specific symptom and how naturopathy can work to resolve that symptom.
Right.
Yeah, so a very common symptom I get is fatigue and joint pain. And that's, across the board, there's so many conditions that will cause fatigue and joint pain. A lot of my patients come and say, they've tried steroids, they've tried various medications because maybe their doctor, didn't have time to really ask those questions of like, what else is going on in life? So in our practice, we take time. We have an hour to 90-minute long appointments to ask these questions. What's happening in their life? What's their job? How much sleep they're getting? How is their mood? Is their fluctuations in that. And then we also do pretty in-depth testing too. So we look at general, your general health, the kidney function, liver function, your cholesterol and things like that. But we also look at in-depth markers that are often not tested, but tell us a lot of what's going on biochemically in the body at a deeper level. So combined with these questions and looking a little bit deeper, we often find the root cause of why they have joint pain and fatigue in the first place. So, as you know, joint pain or fatigue can be caused by a series of autoimmune diseases. It's very common to autoimmune disease, but it's also common in mold toxicity or Lyme disease. So, it's instead of just treating the symptoms right away, really digging a little bit deeper to find the underlying cause. And then when you treat it, it's more effective. And then you're not having to be dependent on some medication or supplement or something for long term. You really are able to use lifestyle changes, nutrition, along with the supplements and nutrients to heal, essentially.
Got it.
That's great. Yes, well said. Thank you for that. Are there any myths about naturopathic medicine that you would like to address for people that are not familiar?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, it's unfortunately when you go online, you might see that it says it's quackery or it's not based on evidence-based, and there's so many things that people say about naturopathic medicine, and yeah, there's that school of naturopathy, but it's not naturopathic medicine. Naturopathic medicine, it's a 4-year comprehensive program. It's in residence. It's not online. There is that counterpart. You can earn your naturopath degree online and things like that in like a year or less. So yeah, there's that distinction, of course. But no, it's a very, very comprehensive 4 years. We essentially learn conventional medicine, naturopathic medicine, and Eastern medicine all in 4 years. So it's a lot that we're learning and training as. And, we learn pharmacology, we learn anatomy, physiology. We're in the cadaver room and doing all the dissections and things like that. So people don't think that we actually went to medical school, but it's a full-on program. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that, Mansi. I'm just curious to see, like, what's your perspective on, so for example, is mental health is also fall under one of the, let's say, treatment areas for naturopathy, or does that fall outside? Just curious.
Yeah, 100%, right? Because we treat the body as a whole, and so the mind and the body are so deeply interconnected that you can't really treat one without the other. And so I personally do a lot of mind-body work with my patients because I am a firm believer that whatever is happening in the mind is going to eventually, if not already, translate to the body and vice versa.
Got it.
Oh, wow. I did. That's a good question, Deepam, and good answer, Mansi, because I didn't realize that there's the mental health aspect of this as well. So then that probably means that you probably trained in trauma therapy as well, right? Like mental trauma?
So, yeah, I mean, it's something that I've pursued a lot after my 4 years of medical school too, because again, it's like medical school, and then you have your residencies or fellowships, and then that's when you get the further training. So in similar context, I have done more trauma release work and learning about trauma and how to help people with trauma. But yeah, absolutely. It's counseling and really working with mental health is part of our curriculum.
Got it. Could you tell us a little bit more about, maybe take an example if that is easier, just how mental health is connected with, just examples of how mental health can be addressed using one of the other means of naturopathy, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so this can go two ways. So I'll try to give both the examples because I think
Sure.
it can be eye-opening. It was eye-opening for me as well when I first
Hmm.
learned these connections. So, gut health is something we all talk about. It's like the new fashion statement, right? Like, how are we treating the gut? Um, and a lot of people also suffer from anxiety and depression. And the two are linked, believe it or not, because the gut is connected to the brain via the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It runs from the back of the head all the way down to the gut. And through that connection, the neurotransmitters are traveling. Also our immune system. So if the gut is very inflamed, or the right balance of probiotics are not there, that will cause inflammation, and that inflammation can then travel upwards too. So we're seeing neurological conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia, even autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression, all of those things,
Hmm.
in maybe more ways than we give credit to, are often rooted in gut health. And so if we can improve gut health, we can also improve these various conditions. So, that's one aspect, because a lot of times we
Hmm.
get bogged down, that it's just anxiety, but maybe there's a root cause even to that anxiety, or maybe there's a tipping point. Yes, you might have an underlying anxiety because of some trauma or something that's happened, but your gut bacteria might also be contributing to that anxiety. So
Got
that's
it.
one way of looking at it.
So when it comes to the gut microbiome, I'm assuming a part of it is also nutrient absorption, right? So because like if you're deficient in certain nutrients, that can translate to disease over the long term. Probably nothing in the short term, but over the longer
Yeah.
term, it can translate to diseases.
Absolutely. And again, that if your gut is leaky, that popular term leaky gut, or if there's a lot of inflammation, then yeah, even if you're taking your vitamins, you might not be absorbing them. So yeah, that's exactly the point.
Got it. Wow, that makes sense. So Mansi, if you were to give one piece of advice, just in general about, there's a lot of talk about mental health and, just fitness overall, and other things like that related to health. If you have to give one piece of advice to people just to keep in mind that they can start improving their lives right away, what advice would that be?
Um, I would say start with the basics:
Okay.
sleep, nutrition, stress management, I think, and hydration. I can't forget hydration, because as simple and as silly as it sounds, but getting enough water with minerals and keeping our electrolytes balanced, doing these four simple things, it can go a long, long way for health.
Got it. Wow.
Okay. So you mentioned water consumption with minerals, right? What's your stance on tap water versus other like water sources like bottled water, mineral water, what's it called, the glacier infused water, etc. Like what in your eyes is what is the healthiest type of water, and like why do you believe that's the healthiest type?
Yeah, I don't know if I can trust a lot of the bottled waters, to be honest, because, and first of all, it's plastics. We don't want the plastics. They're endocrine disruptors. We know that. We're seeing a lot of hormone related issues in younger and younger populations. So, the plastics are definitely a contributor. But beyond that, it's really hard to trust the U.S. food industry. I don't think is regulated well. I think a lot of things enter our food system when they shouldn't be allowed. So that's just, I'll put that aside and say that the best water, I think, is filtered water. There's a filter called the Berkey filter. And yes, things are expensive, unfortunately, to live a healthy preventative lifestyle, but some things are an investment, because the water, believe it or not, it could be damaging a lot of our health. And that's one of our basic needs, right? So we want to make sure that our basic needs are optimal.
Okay, great. So filtered water, got it. So for those of you that may be consuming water in the form of bottles, Monsi's recommendation: avoid that if you can.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want those those plastic, what's it called, petrochemicals entering into your bloodstream.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. All right, so Mansi, you've obviously been dancing for a while, like since you were like a kid, and you also been a doctor. So just just wondering, if you have any perspective on how the creative expression, whether it's dancing in your case it is, but maybe it's music or something else, is related or can influence your overall well-being.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just answered that as well. It influences your overall well-being. I think that creative outlet is so important, and also it's a stress management, right? It's a natural form of stress management. Whenever we engage in anything creative, whether it's music, art, singing, dancing, we release endorphins, the feel-good hormones. So yes, it keeps your body, and it's a way of keeping your body in check naturally.
Got it. And I'm assuming sometimes you also recommend people prescriptions, right? If they just take some time for themselves, let's say if they're suffering from a particular disease, maybe that helps as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
Do you have any advice for people from a nutrition perspective? Because I know you said that your primary suggestion for someone who wants to live a healthy lifestyle is focusing on the basics. So you said water, stress management, and I believe you also said nutrition. Any specific advice when it comes to nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, just very basics. I would say focus on vegetables more than fruits. Focus on whole foods, less processed foods, less sugar when possible, and that way you're going to stay away from a lot of the inflammatory foods. So essentially, following more so of an anti-inflammatory diet. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. And what's your take on whole fruits and vegetables versus smoothies? Is there one that's better than the other in your eyes?
And just to add to that, what about vegan diet versus kind of a dairy-based diet?
Yeah. Interesting questions. I feel like with our population, it's hard to talk about veganism, but yeah. So in terms of whole foods versus smoothies, yeah, definitely benefits in chewing the foods. As soon as you put food in your mouth, enzymes are released. So digestion really starts in the mouth, not even in the digestive tract, or I should say the digestive tract starts in the mouth. So yeah, the benefits of chewing the foods, the fiber is released. So we're feeding the prebiotics to then feed the probiotics. It's all working in sync. So the smoothies, because the fiber is somewhat retained in smoothies, but again, you're not getting that benefit of chewing. And then, when you're chewing and you're mindful, you'll feel satisfied, you'll feel full. Sometimes when we're engaged in mindless eating or just drinking a smoothie while doing work and stuff, you don't realize that you're not actually hungry. So it's just a lot of nuances there. But in terms of dairy or vegan, dairy is inflammatory, especially in the US. So I find that most of my patients don't do well actually on dairy, and by eliminating it, a lot of their symptoms just kind of dissipate or significantly lessen. And these symptoms include pain, gas, bloating, migraines, pretty significant symptoms that impact their daily life and are often improved by just eliminating dairy.
Interesting. I think it's particularly interesting because I know when it comes to weight management, a lot of people in modern dietary trends are big proponents of smoothies. And it's interesting because I 100% agree with what you said. It's digestion does start at the mouth. And I think you also alluded to it, like fiber, for example, right? Fiber also helps to manage the sugar spikes.
Exactly.
So it's interesting because everyone has this whole mindset that drinking smoothies first thing in the morning could be good. But it sounds like, based on what you're saying, based off of the science behind naturopathic medicine, that it may be better than nothing, but it's so much better to consume whole fruits and vegetables versus smoothies. It's very
exactly.
Because it's
and you
very
said it
contrary
perfectly.
to what people have been conditioned to believe.
Exactly. We live in a culture that's so fast paced, so it makes sense, right? You take your smoothie on the go. But you said it so right that it's better than nothing. So if you're not getting any vegetables or any fruits in, then yes, do that. But it's best to eat it and chew it.
That makes sense. Especially if it's just a green smoothie, right? Like I would prefer to drink it versus eating the spinach.
Yeah.
Jokes aside, no, that well said. I think that's great advice. So switching gears a little bit, Mansi, I noticed that you also worked as a lifestyle coach recently. So can you talk to us a little bit more about your experience during that engagement?
Yeah. So after college, and before I applied to medical school, I did do health coaching. So I did that at the Institute of Integrative Medicine, or Nutrition. Sorry, Institute of Integrative Nutrition, IIN. And it was a great opening door, I guess, like an opening to understanding the world of nutrition, the world of just holistic medicine also. So I didn't do so much work because, I was still applying to med school and I was going to go to med school, but it was a way of understanding that the body is so much more than Western medicine. And at that point, I had shadowed in anesthesia. I had done all this, work towards going to medical school, and I was ready to go to conventional medical school at that point. But in that program, IAN, I got exposed to people like Dr. Mark Hyman, the people in the functional medicine field. And then I'm like, okay, this is more so of what I want to do. It aligns with my passions and my mission, how to help people and not just push drugs on them and really help them at the root. But somehow through that program, and after my mom was Googling and she's like, have you heard of naturopathic medicine? And I'm like, no, what is this? Of course I went through all those myths too. Like, is it real? Am I going to be acknowledged and whatnot? But every single bullet point hit right through. And then interestingly, I also came across a model in that IAN course as well. There is a module devoted to naturopathic medicine and all these different forms of medicines that I actually hadn't heard of. So kind of all made sense. I'm like, no, this is my calling. And I want to pursue this, even though it's going to be a long, hard road ahead. So yeah, that's my experience with it.
Okay, awesome. No, thanks for sharing that.
Mansi, I know you had a little bit of a health journey, which I believe was also a contributor for you to want to pursue naturopathic medicine. Do you feel comfortable sharing that story?
I guess my whole life I've kind of always been sick. And, kind of like a lot of my patients too, I would go to the doctors. I would always, share my symptoms, but I felt like I wasn't heard. And then over time, things got worse. And now I have a lot of these diagnoses. And unfortunately, I do have this very rare disease. But yeah, that was the reason why I wanted to become a doctor in the first place, because I had my own health struggles. And really understanding that, Western medicine didn't have much for me. And even though I never found a cure per se, but doing things like meditation at a very young age, learning how to meditate when I was 14, and using dance as a therapeutic modality almost, and having all these mind-body techniques really helped me navigate life despite these challenging symptoms. And it's been really hard, no doubt, especially recently when my health did get a lot worse. But again, it comes down to the amazing nature of naturopathic medicine and the holistic nature of managing symptoms, because on one end, all I was given, for my illness is one drug that caused kidney stones, and I can't take that drug. And that's all I was given in the conventional world. And because maybe, my background and having that holistic mindset, I'm able to manage my symptoms pretty well, I would say, with that aspect of holistic medicine, and not have to worry about the drugs and the powerful side effects that come with it.
Yeah, no, that's very inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing that. And you're right. It's the way that I view traditional medicine is basically where you're taking drugs and that kind of masks the symptoms that you're feeling. But at the same time, as a side effect of masking those symptoms, sometimes you get other side effects. So like a very common side effect for many medication would be like nausea and vomiting and all those type of things. So it's very interesting because in some cases, in the efforts to reduce the symptoms of one thing, you end up creating a whole host of other challenges.
And then you need more medicines for that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, and when you need them, you need them. There's been times for sure I've been in emergency situations where I've definitely needed the medications. But again, it goes back to that having that knowledge, I think, is so powerful, to be able to advocate for yourself that, like, hey, no, I don't want to do this. Tell me my other options, and having doctors in place that can give you these other options, because a lot of conventional medicine can't. So yeah, I feel grateful to have both worlds at my fingertips.
Thanks for sharing that.
Great. Okay. So I think we're probably good to move forward to the next segment of the podcast, which will be the rapid fire round. Deepam, would you like to kick that off?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mansi, as the name suggests, rapid fire. This is just to get to know you a little bit better as a person. So, only easy questions. So I'll start with the first one. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Okay.
Mountains or beaches?
But vegan. I have to clarify, vegan coffee with oat milk.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, is there like a reason from a naturopathic perspective for coffee over tea?
Nope, it's purely because of one of the illnesses that I have. I run low blood pressure oftentimes, and coffee helps me. So I think of it as medicine sometimes for me. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then for the naturopathic lens, to reduce inflammation, avoid the dairy.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
Okay. Mountains or beaches?
Beaches, for sure. I love water. So anything with water.
Okay, interesting. Morning person or night owl?
That's evolved. So I used to be a night owl, and then I was a morning person, and now I'm back to being a night owl.
Okay, interesting. All right. What's your favorite comfort food?
I like yuca fries.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there any story behind that, or is this taste preference?
Yeah, I like fries. I like fried food in general, and as a naturopathic doctor, I don't feel right saying that either. But no, I like a lot of fried foods. But yuca fries, I don't know what it is about them. But when I first had it at Bahama Breeze, there is a restaurant here, locally at least, called Bahama Breeze. And they had yuca fries, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then they stopped making them. So I don't get to have them as much.
What? Wait, no, there's still got to be restaurants out there that have yuca fries. Maybe not Bahama Breeze. We'll find you another one.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. And then, we've made our own a few times too.
Nice.
Got it. Okay. What's your favorite virtue in others?
In others, I admire patience. It's it's something that I always aspire to have, and just mutual respect as a human being, right? We're all living difficult, challenging lives, so just having some respect and kindness towards each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your biggest pet peeve?
That's a hard one.
People who are impatient. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there we go. People who are impatient. I'll take that. Yeah.
No, you don't have to. If there's anything else, you can. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Okay, sounds good. What's your secret superpower?
I would say I have a lot of strength, and sometimes I don't know where it comes from, because no doubt my illness journey has been really hard. There's definitely days where I feel like, okay, I can't even go on. So yeah, I don't know where I get the strength from sometimes, but definitely grateful for that. And I would think that's my superpower.
That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay. What's a superpower you wish you had? And it can be unrealistic as well.
To be able to, so okay, like I was saying, my one-on-one consults are often long, like 60 to 90 minutes, but I need to do that so I can really understand someone, and do a comprehensive, intake. But a superpower that I wish I had sometimes is to be able to not have the 90 minutes or 60 minutes and be able to see a lot more patients so I can help a lot more people.
Wow.
Like to duplicate yourself almost. Seems like a superpower.
Basically, to create like 10 of me, right? Like, yeah.
Or live in a world where everything is happening quickly, like Flash does. So
like speed think or something.
Yeah, exactly. So like maybe the actual superpower is like just knowing, like, just knowing them, like, hi, you're here and you have XYZ, like this is what's wrong, and then they're like, yeah, and then
that would be really cool. It's like you shake your hand and you know them. That could be it. It's like your power is to know people by shaking their hand.
Yes.
So I don't know if you guys have watched this TV series called Manifest. There is a character in that series called Zeke that he has exactly the same power. Have you seen it, Mansi?
Yes, I have. He's so empathic that he can just feel what the other person's feeling. Yeah.
Yes, empath. That's what he calls himself in the show.
That sounds really interesting. I'm gonna have to watch that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Season 4 just came out, I guess, a couple of months ago. I'm watching it now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I actually love shows that have like 3, 4, 5 seasons, because then I can just binge watch it all at once. Otherwise, like, watch a season, you gotta wait another year for the next season, and it just, I don't know. I just like it where I can just watch all of them.
Yeah, definitely watch. It's it's like a supernatural sci-fi show. It's very interesting. No, it's not sci-fi actually. It's like supernatural fiction. Okay, so moving on. What's been your biggest accomplishment in the last 1 or 2 years?
I think starting a practice after, so, not to keep going back to my health, but I did have a medical emergency where I almost did not survive. And then the trauma behind that, getting through it all during COVID. So, I wasn't able to really talk about myself or express myself. We're all socially isolated. So it was all of that happening and learning. In my case, I had to almost relearn how to walk, still can't really dance and things like that. And then building that practice of, just still wanting to help people, because that's, that gives me the courage to go on, that motivation to go on. So I think in the last couple of years, that has to be one of the bigger, I guess, accomplishments, I would say.
Yeah, that's amazing. Kudos to you for that. It's definitely sounds like a very big challenge to have to relearn how to do a lot of those basic things.
Yeah, it has been, but just lucky to have that opportunity to do that again.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, Mansi. If you were not a naturopathic doctor or dancer, what would you be instead?
So when I was in first grade, we did this project in school about dinosaurs, and I don't know what it was, but I was fascinated. And for a good 2 years, I was, you know, whenever anyone would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say a paleontologist. So maybe a paleontologist.
Okay.
Okay, wow.
Interesting. Okay.
Any specific era of dinosaur?
No, not, yeah, I don't think I thought that far through. but, but yeah, I don't know. I think history, excites me. So anything that's sciencey and history combined.
Okay, I have to ask one more question. That is, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Triceratops.
Triceratops. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right. So last question in the series. So given all of what you just talked about, we're just curious to know what's next for you.
So I want to create a platform for especially trauma release work. So, helping people move through trauma, doing mind body practices, and kind of leading. I don't know if I want to call it a retreat or something along those lines, but yeah, that's what I hope to be doing in the next year or so.
Okay, wow. Fascinating. So with that said, this does bring us to the conclusion of our discussion here. So thank you so much, Mansi, for joining and sharing your perspective and teaching everyone on the panel here, as well as our audiences, about naturopathic medicine. Much appreciated. Again, if you guys are not already following Mansi, please be sure to drop her a follow. That's at dr.mansivira on Instagram. And you can also visit drmansivira.com to visit her website. And again, if you guys are not already connected to Your Life Unfiltered on Instagram and on YouTube, please be sure to give us a follow and a subscribe, respectively. With that said, thank you all for joining and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.